At this time, I'd like to call on one of my fellow board members for the purpose of the introduction of our guest speaker today. Please recognize board member Bobby McNeil from Chateau Maitre.
Thank you, Trent. Merry Christmas to everybody. Well, hello and welcome. And our speaker today is kind of brought to you from about 6 months of incubation. About probably last April or May, Paige and I were talking about just around the county, and even within the East LJ markets, what are one of the challenges that we face as business owners and operators? It's a very common thread with all of us, and we just kept looking at each other going, it's talent, it's employees, it's a workforce. And I think if anybody here so staffed that you could give an employer or two away, raise your hand if you are. Yeah, I didn't think I'd see many hands here. So we started talking about that, and I started thinking about my past. Before Chateau Maitre, I was with Chili's Restaurants for almost 30 years. And your speaker today, Jason Mansfield, I had the opportunity, the honor of hiring Jason some 25 years ago. So like Alan and Trent, I could probably say some things about Jason, but he's speaking after me, so I'm going to keep my mouth shut about that. But Jason, I got to watch him grow in his role from a restaurant operator to an HR professional. He's got a number of certifications that he'll probably show you at some point today, but currently leads the people talent department for Chili's Restaurants. Chili's this past year, national recognition was they won Employee Engagement Enterprise Organization of the Year. Jason got to go to Chicago and accept that award on behalf of Brinker. So without any further ado, let's give a warm LJ and Gilmer County welcome to Jason Mansfield, please.
Thank you. I hope that I don't have to hold the mic the whole time. So can you hear me in the back? And if you can, it's okay. No? Okay. I'll hold it for you. I like to walk and talk, so that'll be a challenge for me. So most of you, if you know Bobby, you know what a fantastic person he is, right? So I've heard that today. People walked up to me and said, "Oh, if you know Bobby, you must be a great person because Bobby's a great person." But boy, let me tell you, I think he was way ahead of understanding talent 23 years ago whenever he hired me, is all I'm saying. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But I will say this. I'll say that Bobby is a master negotiator. So part of hiring talent and being able to understand how to hire talent is hiring it cheap. So I don't know how he got me at 60 hours a week of a salary job paying around $25,000 a year. That's how he did it. So how'd you do that, Bobby? Share that with everyone. So I'm anxious to share with you all a little bit about what I've learned over the years with talent. As an operator, as an HR professional, traveling the country, and again, I'll probably do my best I like to walk and talk, so I'll talk about. I just want to share a little bit with everybody about what has happened in not only our industry, but what's happening out there everywhere. And so when you think about what's happening today, which is what we'll talk about in a moment, I'll go over the agenda real quick with you. So we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on today, the reality of our situation today, and then we'll talk about what's happening and what will happen over the course of the next decade. Because it's pretty eye-opening. As business owners and business managers out there, I know that you're feeling it now, but you're going to feel it even more in the future. We're going to talk a little bit about that. I'm going to share with you just some common practices that I've heard, that I've been able to pick up on as I travel the country in my current role. And over the course of the last 2 to 3 years, I've had the opportunity of traveling the country with Chili's, not only looking for talent, but also understanding what other industries are doing. Because at the end of the day, we're all looking for talent. It just might look a little different, but we're all looking for talent. So I'll share a little bit about that, and I've got a couple little things I want to tidbits, and then hopefully at the end you're able to take away just 1 or 2 nuggets that you can take back into your business to be able to help you as we're in this talent war. We'll get into that a little bit more in a moment. All right, so today. So what's happening today? Sorry, my clicker isn't as fast as I'd like it to be. Unemployment, fairly low, right? 40-plus year low of unemployment. In here in Gilmer County, I think it's 3.9%. Those are the last numbers that I could pull up compared to 3.7. So again, unemployment's low. So we're all facing this opportunity of where's the talent out there? Now, of that 3.7%, what you're probably seeing and what we're seeing is that the unemployed out there are not necessarily the ones that we want to get. They're unemployed for a reason. in this type of market, it is certainly a market for the employee as opposed to the employer. Also, our labor force continues to drop. Labor force continues to drop. I'm sure I'll pace back and forth in a moment. Thanks for moving that. Our labor force continues to drop due to many factors. Certainly, I'm sure some of these factors are close to you. It could be disability issues. It certainly could be opioid addictions, which we're seeing out there throughout the country. It could be prison records. There are many factors, but those are some of the common factors that are driving that labor force down. And as the end of October, there's 7.1 million openings out there. 7.1 million open jobs. You probably just saw that last week whenever the Department of Labor announced that. Well, what does tomorrow tell us? Well, this is kind of staggering and eye-opening for you. Over the next 9-10 years, we're looking at a shortage of 8.2 million workers. And that's the most substantial shortfall that the country has seen in 50 years. In addition to that, when I think about my industry, the restaurant industry, which typically pulls in a younger employee base, that younger employee base is shrinking. And as that younger employee base shrinks, and we're going to add jobs, obviously that math doesn't work out either, right? You also add in manufacturing, one of the largest employers here in Gilmer County. 12.5 million workers today. The industry is looking at 2 million worker shortage by 2025, just in manufacturing alone. Right? Trucking industry as well. They're coming up with some numbers that are pretty staggering. They're projecting out. And we also have this factor of wages that continue to go up. So as shortages go, supply and demand, as we have shorter and shorter opportunity for employees out there, our wages continue to go up. It just doesn't paint a very bright future for business owners and operators out there. We have to think about doing some things a little bit different. When we think about doing some things differently, we have to take into consideration what are the current employees telling us? What are they saying? What do they want from us as owners and operators? So 82% of employees, your employees today, they're looking for other opportunities. And if you think they're not, you're fooling yourself. They are. 40% of employees agree they'd leave their current job for a year for fringe benefits. There's different benefits that today's employee is looking for as opposed to maybe 5, 10, certainly 15 years ago. They're looking for something different. You have to find out what that is. From the professional base, 33% of those professionals are saying, hey, I'm bored. I want to challenge. I want to grow personally. I want to grow professionally. They're telling us that. 61% of those Gen Zs, my kids that are out there, up to around that 22 age, they're telling us, say, that they're going to leave their current job within 2 years. It's not a big deal for them to leave a job. That's just what they do. They're looking for new opportunities. And then if you look at the far right there, 70% of those millennials we've been talking about for years and years. Those millennials have considered leaving a job for another with flexible options. Flexible, we're going to talk about what does flexibility mean from an owner-operator. How can you be flexible and still have productivity? So, when talking for me, and what a lot of my colleagues in the talent selection industry and side of the business continue to talk about, this phrase comes up often. We're in a war on talent. And it's not just an industry war. It doesn't happen to be your industry in manufacturing, your industry in whatever that happens to be. We're battling each other. We're all in a war for talent. And it's telling us that it's not going to get any better. All right? So I like to think of 3 ways to gain talent. You can buy it. Right? You can go out, you can find talent, and you can pay for it. It's a pretty hefty proposition. It's going to cost you more and more. And as we continue to see hourly rates and salary rates go up, it's going to be tough on your business. You can borrow it. So you can continue to borrow team members from each other, employees from each other, and that's also pretty costly. So when I think about borrowing talent, talent for us in the restaurant industry, Chili's has roughly 38,000 team members in our Brinker company-owned restaurants across the country. okay? Roughly 38,000. We have an industry-leading turnover rate of around 100%. 100% annualized. 38,000 team members that we're hiring in. 100% is industry-leading, okay? You do the math, roughly $10 million at $250 to $300 for training cost alone. Fixed training cost. We just can't afford that, right? We can't do that. You can't do that. Whatever level you happen to be on from an employee base. Or you can build it. We're going to talk a lot about building it. So some of the focuses that our industry, other industries are starting to understand is we have to build our talent. First of all, because the talent's not going to be there. We saw that. Secondly, because when you build it, I'll share with you some statistics on loyalty, performance, all the measurements and metrics that we're looking for, they tend to go up pretty quickly. Okay? All right. First thing we got to do, understanding in the war on talent, is we have to really increase the level of quality of our hires. So it's a challenge for us across the country. I've got a team out there that roughly is looking for somewhere in the neighborhood of 250 to 300 salaried managers a year. Okay? Across the country, that's roughly what we're looking for right now. And so when we're talking about elevating our hiring expectations for my team, we talk mainly about aligning expectations with that candidate. The hiring managers, do they truly understand not only what the expectations of the job, are they prepared? You'd be surprised how many of our hiring managers out there are just not prepared for the interview. Are they aligning with the candidate's expectations? So I'll share with you some in a moment about how important the candidate expectations are in the interview process. But can we, as owners and operators, can we deliver on what those expectations are? And then what about the company? So what voice does the company have? Is it the voice of the hiring manager only, or are you ensuring that your company's voice and culture is part of that conversation in the interview? You've probably seen this before, common errors out there by hiring managers, but something that we talk about often, that maybe they didn't follow up on any references, I didn't have time. Costly error. Hired a rock star. How many of you out there have hired a rock star and it didn't work out? Sure, you thought it was the best hire ever, right? The best person, they're going to come in and they're going to make a difference. Well, maybe what you didn't consider is that rock stars, they're going to kind of mess up your business. Rock stars aren't coming to conform to your business. Rock stars are coming to make your business better. But is your business ready for that? And is your culture ready for that? Typically, rock stars walk in the door and they want to change. They want to move up. But if your company and your culture is not ready for that, they'll run out pretty quickly. Well, we certainly see that in our industry as well. And maybe you wrote the applicant off in the first 10 seconds. Today in this room, I'm sure there's still some hiring managers out there that have the thought that if they don't show up with a pen or a pencil, they're out the door. Well, if you're still thinking that way, and you're still approaching a candidate that way, I would challenge you of what that's going to look like over the next 2, 3, 4, 10 years. That's just not the way it works these days. Certainly in my day when I was going to interview with Bobby, I'm sure he wouldn't have hired me if I didn't show up with a pen. But these days, certainly it's different. You just have to think about how do we elevate that quality. And this is something that, again, we talk often about in the talent selection field. All right. And so when we talk about alignment, most common opportunity that I see, it doesn't matter where. I was at a talent selection conference last month, 2 months ago, October, in Orlando. And the talent selection managers across the country, we're all facing the same battles. And the battles that we're facing are all just opportunity to gain alignment on 3 different areas, whether it's the tech industry, the hospital industry, the hospitality industry, manufacturing industry. I have the pleasure of meeting with some brilliant minds out there, and we're all kind of saying the same thing. It's alignment. It's alignment on the job. Do you, as an interviewer, and does the candidate, are you aligned on what the reality of the job is? If you sell them on something that's not true, they're going to leave you pretty quick. You got to align on what the job expectations are. The candidate's expectations. So you know those 38,000 team members that we're losing roughly every year, right around that 99%. So we're losing around 38,000 team members. I know that's a big number for you, right? The overwhelming majority of the feedback we get in of why they left is because we didn't meet their expectations. But if we don't find out what their expectations are, we don't know if we can deliver on those or not. Biggest opportunity on our hiring managers out there is they're just hiring a body, or they're hiring someone who can do the job that I want them to do, but we don't align on what their expectations are. In our candidate pool, especially today, they have expectations. We owe them. They think we owe them. They tell us all the time, what does the company owe them? And we have to understand that by asking those questions. The company, again, what's the voice of that company? The culture. Will this candidate fit in? So when our team is talking about alignment, and every single candidate that we're talking to fill those 250 or 300 salary positions across our brand, we're talking about aligning on these three. And when we miss, because we do, typically we miss because we didn't align on one of these three. Something happened in that alignment process. All right. So if we hire and we improve our hiring processes and procedures, and we start getting a better candidate in the door, well, that's just the first step. So from an engagement perspective, what is engagement? How many of you heard the buzzword, the buzz phrase, the employee engagement phrase? I'm sure you've heard that quite a bit. What does that mean? Well, you can see on the board, on the screen what it means. Let me ask you one question: is happy and engagement, a happy employee and an engaged employee, are those the same? Yeah, they're not. So it's interesting. So over the course of the last couple of months, I've been speaking with one of my best friends, a small business owner where I live in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. And so he's a small business owner, and he's been talking about one of his employees. He's got about 20, 25 employees, but we've been sharing an opportunity that he has. And so this is a salesperson, and this salesperson is happy. They're very happy in their job.